At what point do the one-sided and blatantly biased actions of a police department become an act of obstruction of justice? And when does a detective become so motivated to help the criminals that he becomes an accomplice after the fact? These are the questions we are now researching and bringing to light after a special fraud detective assigned by the South Simcoe Police Service to review the case of usury committed by the wealthy brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station told our producer that he is omitting key evidence based on nothing but his personal desires while also knowingly using the wrong mathematical formula that will alter the rate of interest charged so that it does not appear to be usury or loan sharking. The first action is unethical, while the second is a crime. On Friday, August 4, 2023, our producer, an internationally experienced journalist and former technical specialist for private investigations, met with Detective Muto at the South Simcoe Police Service precinct in Bradford. It did not take long for the experienced researcher to understand that the true purpose of the meeting was for the detective to justify, at least in his own mind, the fabrication of inaccurate calculations. He also made it clear that he was going to dismiss vital evidence to excuse the crime of usury, or loan sharking, that was committed by Renee Dadswell, with the assistance of David Flude and Lisa Purchase, all brokers at Verico the Mortgage Station. Muto began by manipulating the amount of interest charged. To do this he used a formula that can only be used to calculate a percentage, not a level of interest. Math is pure science, and no ethical person will manipulate the results by using whatever formula will give them the results they want rather than the true calculation. This is especially true when dealing with evidence in a criminal matter. Muto's methods are comparable to using the Pythagorean theorem or the theory of special relativity to calculate the weight of an elephant. It is the wrong formula, and this specially trained financial investigator should know it. A percentage is a static calculation, like a snapshot of the moment, while interest is affected directly by time. Muto stated that he had calculated interest by a formula of principal divided by the interest paid, which equals the interest rate. Using that formula, Muto could say that $2,000 divided by $499.75 equals approximately 25% interest. The results of this fundamentally flawed calculation allow the detective to fraudulently claim that the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station did not exceed the 60% threshold required to support a charge of usury. And we can think of only one reason why this specifically trained fraud detective would be knowingly fudging the figures. A quick Google search confirmed that Muto is using the wrong formula to calculate the interest charged. We can only speculate what has motivated this specially trained financial detective to be so supportive of the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station that he is willing to submit false evidence to exonerate them regardless of the truth and the evidence provided while working in a field of analysis that is supposed to be his area of expertise. Even the loan shark mortgage broker admitted that time is a component of the calculation of interest, so why is Muto insisting that the formula he is using is the correct one, and that he cannot be wrong? The ethics of the South Simcoe Police Service must now be called into question as their detectives have taken multiple actions, including omission and falsification of evidence, to fraudulently absolve the brokers and eliminate the stain of fraud that now spreads across three very profitable corporations. If such action was taken by a civilian, they would be charged with omission and obstruction of justice. The track record of this case shows an organized plan of denial and dismissal on the part of the South Simcoe Police Service. Our producer provided more than 100 pages of evidence to a uniformed officer, who reviewed the materials and saw merit in the claims. He then forwarded the files to the Criminal Investigations Division of the South Simcoe Police Service, which was supposed to investigate the claims and evidence. However, instead, the evidence and allegations were ignored for a full year. Then, when we started reporting on this story, a detective named Smith was assigned to review the materials. Without explanation, Smith supported the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station so completely that he dismissed the allegations without even speaking with the victim or asking for any further evidence. That is when we went public and showed the world through the presentation of real evidence the truth that Smith was apparently hoping to conceal. We also sent our evidence and allegations to all members of the Innisfil Mayor and Council. It was only then that Chief John Van Dyke and Inspector Julio Fernandez of the South Simcoe Police Service, who had been condescending and insulting to our producer, suddenly became apologetic and offered to assign Muto to review the file. In an email, Fernandez claimed, "Detective Constable Muto has extensive training and experience involving high-level, high monetary value, and complex fraud investigations both from our police service as well as from his time with a previous police service for several years. The standard formula for calculating simple interest, as is accepted across the banking and financial world, is I equals P times or times T, or interest equals principal times rate of interest times time. By choosing to remove time as a contributing and important factor, Muto skewed the results, which appears to have been the intent. A simple Google search of the words "calculate simple interest rate" will confirm our claims regarding the authenticity and uniform acceptance of the formula we present here for all to see. Mathematical formulas are not adjustable, and no ethical person would alter them to make the numbers work for them. In this case, doing so could be considered an act of fraud and obstruction, as this is a criminal investigation. There is also no excuse for Detective Constable Muto not knowing this formula given the high praise noted by Inspector Fernandez. We found the truth through a simple Google search that then led us to fact-check our findings through dozens of independent pages that confirmed the exact same formula as being the only valid calculation when determining a rate of interest. We also found interest calculators on reputable websites run by brokers, mortgage companies, and banks, and all of them confirmed our position that when the time was included in the calculation, as is required, the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station easily exceeded the legal level of usury, also known as loan sharking. It seems highly unlikely that Detective Constable Muto, who has had several weeks to prepare for this meeting, honestly believes that his calculation of 25% interest is in any way accurate. Detective Constable Muto also tried to convince our producer that the law permitted him to extend the time of only one component of the offense so he could amortize the rate of interest charged over a year. He also unilaterally removed $450 per month of established charges simply because he felt the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station would not charge them again. There was no evidence to support that apparently motivated conjecture, and feelings are not admissible as evidence in a court of law. The only evidence is that they did charge those fees. End of story. This supposedly special financial detective tried again to fudge the figures by saying he could extend the timeline to 365 days while ignoring the bulk of the costs associated with the cost of borrowing that is established by the evidence. The offense was committed within a specific period, and it is interest-based, which relies on time as part of the calculation. As such, the specific time frame must be included as part of the calculation of interest charged. The Criminal Code of Canada Section 347(2) explains clearly that interest means the aggregate of all charges and expenses, whether in the form of a fee, fine, penalty, commission or other similar charge or expense or in any other form, paid or payable for the advancing of credit under an agreement or arrangement, by or on behalf of the person to whom the credit is or is to be advanced, irrespective of the person to whom any such charges and expenses are or are to be paid or payable. However, to make his math appear to work, Muto demanded that he has the right to remove the $450 a month in fees that were charged as part of the scheme of usury. According to our research, which we cross-referenced from multiple sources, eliminating evidence in this manner would violate the law that is supposed to apply to everybody, forming grounds for a charge of omission as well as possibly obstruction. As always, we are presenting our evidence here for all to see. Included on the page of this video are the results of our calculation of interest, which is generated by a credible interest rate calculator that is financially supported by multiple mainstream Canadian banks. National banks would not advertise on this service if the formula used, or the programming of the calculator was flawed. We have also provided a link to this calculator so our followers can confirm our findings for themselves. Does anybody really believe that the detectives are so incompetent as to not know the difference between percentage and interest? This kind of openly biased investigation suggests a reason why the brokers at Verico the Mortgage Station, the managers of Verico Financial Group Incorporated, and the board of directors of Home Equity Bank have not sued us, nor sought a cease and desist order or other injunctive relief, especially when you consider that we are a small not-for-profit community channel, and they are multi-million and multi-billion-dollar corporations. For what possible real-world reason would any of these companies just sit back and allow us to make these claims about them without at least trying to silence our allegations if we are not reporting the truth? The answer is they know we can easily support our allegations with evidence in a court of law. So far, we have not received so much as a saber-rattling legal threat or even an angry email. Instead, the Home Equity Bank took the sleazy route and is accused by Facebook of trying to censor our story on social media, claiming copyright violations that do not apply to journalists. Meanwhile, the various detectives of the South Simcoe Police Service seem determined to assist the brokers of Verico the Mortgage Station to evade prosecution for these crimes and have now progressed from denial and deflection to relying on knowingly fraudulent figures manufactured via a fundamentally flawed calculation that serves only to manufacture false evidence in support of protecting the loan sharks. Why are these massively powerful corporations clearly scared to take the matter before a judge, and why will the South Simcoe Police Service not evaluate this case in an unbiased and balanced manner based on the evidence as is required of them by the Police Services Act? Why are we the only ones standing in the light of day presenting our evidence openly in our own names? Due to the growth of this story, we have extended the timeline of our production. We may also change the format of the proposed series so that the multifaceted story of Verico the Mortgage Station, Verico Financial Group Incorporated, Home Equity Bank, and the South Simcoe Police Service becomes a standalone feature-length report about all the key players. We are also reaching out to socially active directors and producers like Michael Moore seeking advice, guidance, involvement, and other resources. We fully expect to be reading components of our story in the mainstream media very soon.